So thank you so much for your time. For all the people that actually didn't meet you yet, would you mind to introduce yourself and tell us about what's your job at Riot specifically?
Hi, everyone. My name is Eduardo Cortejoso. I am the game modes lead for League of Legends. So, generally responsible for defining the strategy and vision for all the game modes that you see in League of Legends, ranging from obviously ARAM, which we'll talk about quite a bit today, as well as Arena, Swarm, and a lot of your other favorite recurring modes like Earth, Nexus Blitz, Spellbook, so on and so forth.
Thank you so much. So in ARAM, we actually get two more maps, and one of them actually made me feel really old, like damn old, because the Gangplank bridge I actually looked at and was like nearly 10 years ago. And I kind of looked at back at it and was like, damn. So when was the actually decision to think about bringing that one back? Because I mean, like, it's 10 years now.
Yeah, so it's been a long time. It's interestingly enough, we've always been excited about just looking at our old content generally, and obviously Bridge is very close and near and dear to our hearts. So we had one of our engineers kind of put the map together as a prototype just to see, is this possible? Is this feasible? We got a quick play test in and noticed it really was. But we obviously, just didn't want to bring it over. We had a few improvements that we wanted to make. So we're like, on the edge of like wanting to hit that nostalgic beat for a lot of us who were fans of League back in the day when Gangplank died, but totally he didn't. That's why he's still in the game. And really allow players to kind of re-experience that, but also for our new players who have are somewhat envious of the older audience that was able to experience that map back in the day. They're now able to dive in themselves for the first time and as part of this new rotation. So we're really excited to bring it to the table and have it debut with our new map rotation feature going out in the summer.
Now, talking about rotations, I mean, there are some RNG factors, I would say. So, for example, you also brought in a new champ select screen where you actually get cards, and normally you get two, but sometimes you get three. And the playtest, we were putting together an Excel table to actually Excel sheet to check how often you actually get that. And we thought like it's roughly 25%. Are we off a lot, or would you say that this is roughly what you planning for?
I mean, everything's tuning until release. So the thing is, it's a pretty variable behind the scenes formula right now that it'll depend right now on the amount of champions your account owns. So the more champions your account owns, the higher your chances of getting that third card. The less you own, the less chances of it appearing. So this is in large part to reward players with a more diverse roster, but also it's just naturally somewhat of a game balance thing where at a higher roster, you want a little bit more reliability in the pick choices that you have, where it's much more likely that you're going to run into a champion you might not be able to pilot quite as well. So we definitely are using it as kind of a little bit of a tuning lever for accounts that have a ton of champions, and particularly to kind of reward them and have players get excited about unlocking new champions into their ARAM pool.
Cool, I actually didn't know that one. Were there any plans thinking about, okay, make all the champs available in ARAM? I mean, it would probably have a lot of downsides, honestly, because people playing them first time all the time. But on the other hand, you also get a quick start on a champion that you may buy and main and stuff.
Yeah, we're always open to options. This is one of the things we're definitely going to be monitoring as this change goes live and we see how players react and just try to understand like the correlation between champion roster size versus game health for those players. So we're looking forward to updates in the space. I wouldn't say that we have like a committed direction quite yet until we see some of the feedback we get from players.
Do you actually keep track of people playing their ARAM only accounts? Because it was like when ARAM was really sweaty back in the day, people actually prepared like accounts with only champs they really know.
Yeah, so this is a great question. In large part because this change is very much intentional to try to avoid a scenario where we reward ARAM only accounts too much. This is kind of why the third card feature has been implemented. It's it's a little bit of a push and a pull, right? There's a lot of ARAM players who just love their limited champion pool, but at the same time, it's like an issue of competitive integrity in the mode up to a certain degree. And for a lot of players, it can be frustrating to run into the same pool of champions that are considered to be quote unquote meta in the mode. So to that end, like we definitely want to always encourage like wider roster diversity and gameplay diversity. So you'll see us being pretty targeted with that as one of the models for change. I think we're just taking a little safe right now with this release, and it's something we'll be evaluating more and more as we go forward.
So when you actually play tested it, did you try a version where you had like 4 cards for people who have all the chains, or 5, or did you actually go extreme in one direction like that?
Not, I think, I'm trying to remember some of our earlier playtests right now. I would argue that some of the earlier not I would argue, but I would say the earlier playtests definitely had a wider pool to choose from. And what ended up happening, it was too reliable, right?
Yeah,
like
okay.
if the bench is like at 15 champions or something like that, it's just like you're gonna get someone you know how to pilot every game. The whole point on ARAM is just like sometimes you're gonna pilot something else and that's okay. The stakes are too low for you to care too much about it anyways. So in doing that, I would assume the pick rates on champions would be massively improved in certain bits. And then we would have to nerf them. Then people would get mad at us, and the cycle would kind of spiral from there. So we were pretty careful on like bench size, on average bench size being kind of close to where it is today. So it'll be somewhat seamless in at least regards to the pick diversity that players are seeing.
Cool. So when we're talking about competitive integrity and stuff like that, was ranked ARAM any serious consideration? Because I always wonder, do you actually ask a lot of ARAM players, like, are they casual? Don't they try out like hell? Like, do they actually want to have that ranked?
And ranked ARAM is always a question. So it's a little bit of a philosophical question with ARAM, where ARAM, for ranked, we want Summoner's Rift to be the premier competitive experience that is, that serves that motivation, right? ARAM's not supposed to be that. ARAM's supposed to be the place where I've been playing League of Legends for 10, 12, 13, whatever years that players have been playing. So we want them to have this space where they don't have to have the anxiety on performing well and dealing with rank. One of the things that we're pretty concerned about when considering a queue like ranked ARAM, because obviously we've had the conversation, but we have no plans towards it, is because similar to how in normals, like people sometimes, even in normals, will take the game seriously because they're using that as their preparation for ranked. It kind of changes the perception of the entire audience towards the mode. And the point, the role that ARAM serves for League has never been be the competitive sweaty mode. We'll have other outputs for that, whether it be ranked, obviously, in Summoner's Rift, or potential future opportunities that we want to explore. ARAM specifically likely will not be the place where we explore like more hyper competitive motivations outside of Clash or particular events of that nature.
Yeah, I would really find it interesting to have like ARAM ranked for like 1 month, like give it an all and see how much high elo player actually would be willing to go toe to toe. Because I actually come from a generation, we got ARAM tournaments every weekend, and the clue was that Riot actually gave away the new champion with 2 skins for every community tournament. So we were farming ARAM tournaments every damn weekend because it was the fastest point for us to get the champions we needed for the tournaments. It was actually hella fun, but it was at one point we met Moscow 5 2 weekends in a row because they had to do the same. And at that moment I felt like this mode isn't supposed to be that sweaty.
No, it's not. It's really not.
But it was wonderful times, years behind, thankfully. So let's talk quickly about the map, because we have two more. From the gameplay perspective, which one do you like more? Because I think on the style side, you can actually argue for both. I think they're both pretty wonderful. But what do you actually like gameplay-wise? Which one is it?
My personal answer. So it's interesting because like I'm trying to remove how pretty the Koshin's Bridge is. Admittedly, it's just a very pretty map, and I'm biased. Obviously, we worked on it, and the artists have done an amazing job on that map. I gotta go with the Butcher's Bridge. That is, it's just jumping in with cannons. There's something visceral about that. So my champion pool is like Vi, Zach, Jarvan.
Well, it was a
Like,
nice interview. See you again in a year or something.
so you can see why I would like these
Uh-huh.
cannons, right? I just want to send it. Like I am a very impatient ARAM player, where some people will like sit back and poke and all that. It's like I want no poke. I just want action, and I will be
Mhm.
the one to force the action. So the cannons speak to me very particularly.
Yeah, I can imagine that. Was there actually any idea about letting players pick a map? Because I think it's always knife edge, because obviously you also see which map is actually like more, which can be frustrating for the developer team as well, I can believe. And at the same time, it's add frustration if you let them choose and you don't win. I noticed from TFT, it's if you lose that ported choice, you are really pissed, surprisingly. So was this ever something you thought about, or something that you actually will monitor and see if you implement it in the future?
Yeah, I think obviously anything's open to changes right now, but this is what we landed on our first implementation, in large part because we felt this is actually the healthiest answer. What we were particularly concerned about with like maybe a voting system or displaying it during champ select is queue dodging in particular, where
Oh.
if people don't quite run into the map that they want, they might start queue dodging, and that by introducing the map rotation, we would then increase the rate of queue dodging in ARAM relative to
Mm.
where it is today, which is like strictly the scenario we want to make sure we avoid. So don't get me wrong, like that does not mean we won't monitor sentiment and like how people feel about the different maps, even if the play rate is mostly going to be equal across the board. We will try to be careful around like which maps players are responding well to, what parts of the map they're responding well to. And if there's interest in voting and we can kind of find a way around the queue dodge, that's definitely something that's like in the cards. We've definitely had a lot of ideas internally beyond just showing it in champ select. But we'll wait and see. I think this is like a healthy first stab at it. Hopefully it's the right one, and our players will let us know one way or the other.
Definitely. I mean, they made their voice heard heavily in the last month, but also, I mean, right, listen more than, or at least the feelings, the sentiment is that that it's actually that way at the moment. So if you implement two new maps, people want to queue up and play them. So is it reasonable to assume that you will higher the odds to at least get one of these two in the beginning, or actually is there only these two?
It's 3 maps. So we
Yeah,
also
okay.
are keeping the Howling Abyss as well, which is the traditional
So
ARAM
do you
map.
lower the play rate of this to in the beginning, like
So I think what we'll do is we're explicitly going to be boosting the appearance rate for Koshin's Crossing in particular, the new Spirit Blossom
ah.
map. So that might last maybe a patch or two, and then we're going to return to more stable rates across the 3 maps, around 33% each. That we kind of want to keep things equal across the board, but for the first few weeks, we'll definitely see a slightly increased rate for our new Spirit Blossom map.
Will you actually implement that? Is it pickable in custom games, or will it in custom games also be just ARAM and then you roll the dice and wish you luck?
ARAM, roll the dice, wish you luck. We're definitely considering options in custom game support across the board, but nothing I can speak to in detail today.
Yeah, custom games also seems to always be quite a hustle on the tech side as well. So let's keep it that. We want to all have working servers, please. So okay, let's talk about plans on new maps, because now we have all these season. We have like Noxus that you actually kind of ditch because you release it now, but you have that in Arena, which is a game mode as well. So is it reasonable to assume that you manage to hit a new era map for every season? Because obviously they're like, you plan a lot of them, right? So that would actually be quite a burn.
It'll feel that way, hasn't it? Between the SR map updates, the new mode maps, as well as ARAM, obviously we're stretching ourselves a little bit here. So no plans on no current plans on committing to like any future ARAM maps necessarily. Right now we're just focused on making sure this rotation makes sense, and that players are going to be excited about that. But yeah, we have not quite landed on like what long-term answers and what the expected rate of maps will be for ARAM. We are excited about maps in ARAM being a vehicle for players to look forward to updates through ARAM, right? This is actually one of the things that we most want to solve, which is like, how can we get ARAM players to be excited about a patch in League of Legends or a season, right? Generally, League has interacted with skins or things that are happening on SR. And for ARAM players, they don't quite see that same pace of change. We'd love for maps to be the answer, but we're going to make sure we get this rotation bit right before we consider some future plans there.
Okay, perfect. I mean, I think this will already be kind of fun. So we talked a lot about the bridge being really beautiful, new map, wonderful. But I think there are like 10 Easter eggs, or at least beautiful design choices. For example, the Porous Pool or whatever it is. What is your favorite one? Which is like the one view of the map where you're like, oh, this was something I didn't expect, or something I look at and I just think, damn. This is beautiful.
Okay, so the water. The water, both in the background and in the environment, like in the mid lane. There's a few tech artist wizards that did some really cool work that I didn't see coming. And when I saw it implemented, I'm like, whoa, this is different. I hadn't seen this before. I think I know it's like a minor detail, but for me, it really stood out. You can see like also like the water flowing in the back with like, obviously we're in the bridge, and the bridge inspired by, or I guess co-inspired by kind of the trailer that we released at the start of the season. It's kind of really exciting to see everything start to play together. And like, I remember when we saw that first trailer, no one knew at the time, but when I was seeing it, was like, hey, that's the ARAM map. No one knows it. I can't wait till they look forward to some of these scenes and seeing kind of these in-universe locations with the temple and just the different sides of Koshin's Crossing. We're really excited for people to get invested in some of the views and the lore bits. But for your question, my favorite views, the skybox at the top side of the map for sure with all the water, and then the water just in the map itself for me, my big two standouts. It's also the Death Realm thing has come together. I'm really excited about how that ships to players too. So I can't wait to see how players react to it.
I imagine Qiyana player agree with you because I can finally
Qiyana.
use elements. Let's go. Being useful. I think this is gonna be kind of fun about this one. Okay, thank you so much. But let's focus on the fun part of this, because I think if you work on this for a long time, and since you talked about the trailer, we can assume that you guys actually put in some hours into this. What was the most fun experience for you and your team? Because I can imagine if you work on the game mode team, ARAM is like bread and butter for most of you guys, because it was like the only game mode we had left for a long time. So what was the environment you coded in, or you had the ideas in, and what was the most exciting part?
So specifically about this map?
No, just in the rotation game mode.
Oh, okay. So I think there's two answers. One, exactly as you said, the team is full of ARAM mains. When I joined the team back in 2022, and we were preparing for Arena, it's like we were really excited about Arena, but for a lot of people in the team, they kept asking me, it's like, when are we doing something for ARAM? When are we doing something for ARAM? When are we doing something for ARAM? So we had a lot of like prototypes and ideas for stuff we could do in ARAM. Things started to come together mostly for Arcane, where we had the Bridge of Progress. And I think that early bit on like exploring the universe of Arcane in the map and working with the creative team behind Arcane on like aligning on what the location should look like was particularly very compelling for it was very near and dear for a lot of people on the team, because we got to interact with a really cool part of the extended universe. As well as kind of show off our ARAM bona fides to the best of our ability, which we hope we're doing here as well. So that for a lot of ARAM first players in the team, that was definitely a big moment. I have a personal soft spot on Arena in particular. This is our first major project in a long time for modes. So in early development, there was this one point in which the original arena map was actually like these sliced off pieces of the Nexus Blitz map. And
Oh.
then when we had 2 or 3 developers like kind of go off in a corner for 2 weeks because we needed to get the map off of that, and we need to like, okay, we need to make the real thing. So they go, they come back, we do our first play test on like what you now know, like the little islands across the arena map. And it was that's like the first time we were having fun in play test before. That was the first time it clicked though, right? Where it's like,
Okay.
this is real. And most modes go through this. Like Swarm had this experience where we went from the prototype to the kind of the real implementation. And there's always one point in dev where either a certain feature or a certain art update will make the map click, and whenever that happens, it's kind of like magic, where you're like, oh, finally, it's because you're always a little like self-conscious about how the experience is going, and then when it clicks, it's very gratifying. So generally, that's kind of the point I look to in most of our projects.
Yeah, it looks actually like a really cool moment for the whole team, right? Because you work
Yeah.
on something for a long time and then it clicks like that. Probably the feeling you want to have every time. So you talked about the part you took with the Arcane map. Is there any reason that this map isn't in the rotation? Because I mean, it was a reskin, you could probably call it like that. Maybe it wasn't game changing enough, but actually a lot of people liked it, right? Because of Arcane. They loved the series. So was this an idea to bring that back as well?
It's that, I mean, we're interested in the Bridge of Progress. Don't get me wrong. I mean, we built the map that's there. So this is mostly, we knew we wanted to launch the rotation with 3 maps.
Okay.
Generally, this is like for tuning and game health purposes. We felt like it was a decent starting point to reintroduce people to the experience and make sure that we're like budgeting properly and whatnot. But so 3 maps was kind of our go-to target that we wanted to play with. And we again, as I mentioned before, we like a lot of folks are like, hey, Bridge of Progress is cool, but what if Fortress Bridge? So we had some early player labs that kind of pointed us in the direction of Butcher's Bridge because we had some longtime players play, and they didn't even play. They were just like, please do this. Like, please, please. And it was pretty apparent to us that I think a lot of people had nostalgia for the old map and we're going to get pretty excited. And we had some ideas on like how we wanted to improve it. So it made the decision pretty easy for us. Like Bridge of Progress is still fresh in everyone's mind. We can kind of like let that sit for a second. Let's get people back on the Butcher's Bridge and we'll revisit the Bridge of Progress. It's something that I'm sure you'll see it again at some point.
Perfect. Now I have a title for the video. Just kidding. So on the new bridge, we actually don't have poles, but we have like some other more, I don't know how they actually are called. Did you have an internal name for these leaky, more ugly little stuff that you actually are able to feed as well? Or was it just an... Do you know what I mean?
No.
So in normal ARAM, if you are a human being and don't hate everything, you can feed stuff, the little poros. And now on the new bridge, on the old Gangplank one, you have like really ugly stuff you can actually feed.
Those rats. Yeah.
Oh, they're actually rats.
I mean, they're little rat dudes. Yeah, I mean, we wanted to make you feel like you're in location, right? Like poros. I guess we could have put poros in some pirate hats and eye patches, but we wanted to have a little bit of fun and diversify the environments a bit, so we went with it.
Red bodies. Okay, we can work with that, I think. I mean, that's definitely nice. So actually, when you talked about seeing the trailer before and knowing that will be an ARAM map, so it feels from the outside like all the teams at Riot are trying to work together to bring this season really alive. But this also means that you're probably in development with this map for a month. How much of the original plan that you had in mind for this map is actually able to ship on time? Because I mean, like, this is like such a burden on a team. I can imagine bringing Arena back at the same time, doing all this stuff, like really stretching out. So do you think that you actually were able to implement most of the ideas?
Yeah, actually, this was one of our, I mean, we had a lot of lessons learned from the Bridge of Progress map. So we went into this one with a pretty clear direction on what this was going to be and what it wasn't going to be. we had been talking about some of the stuff for our map rotation for even before we launched the Bridge of Progress. So this project, not to say all projects are swimming and straightforward, it's super easy, but this one in particular was, we had a pretty clear picture of what this was supposed to be pretty early on. I think mostly on the art direction side, we saw a lot more changes relative to what we did on the Bridge of Progress. So obviously we had a lot more back and forth to your point. With this introduction of seasons to League of Legends, we want to make sure everything feels very connected. We've gotten the critique in the past that League of Legends events sometimes just feel like skin lines. So you'll note that with this season of Noxus and now this season of Spirit Blossom, we really want to create this very integrated experience where every beat is playing off of each other, which means obviously more coordination amongst our teams. But it's work we're really willing to do because we as players are also excited about the potential that these type of things introduce, where by playing off of each other, kind of all ships will rise. Yunara, I'm particularly interested in playing her once she's live, in large part because of my investment to the rest of the Spirit Blossom event. I think in isolation, these things are somewhat powerful, but I think things are so much better when you have the context behind the entire season, and I'm really excited about continuing to do more of that moving forward.
Yeah, I think especially in the Kayn season, it was really, especially because I play so much TFT, it felt like TFT was connected for the first time with the first season, obviously. It felt like we are part of this experience for the first time as well. It was really, I really loved it back then. So to bring things to an end on the ARAM side, what was the most unusual idea you had? ARAM is all random, all knit. Did you at other point decide, actually it would be more fun if we don't make a line, but more like a top lane, because they never have friends. Did you ever have really stupid, unusual ideas in the team that you actually discussed?
Yep, we did. I think my favorite in-dev idea that never should have shipped, but we were curious about, is we knew we could play with the map shape. So we were like, okay, what if ARAM was kind of like, it's a lane, but it's a snake lane?
Oh my
Or
gosh.
a lot of curves or something.
Turret defense mode coming soon.
We had a lot of it was really janky because the minions would move in these weird patterns, but we had a much more variation on the bridge, on the shape of the bridge earlier on, and it led to some pretty interesting people with displacement mechanics or people with wall hops. Talon stands here in particular, had some very funny and buggy interactions early on. And it broke a rule that we had when we were developing these maps, which is whatever you do, make sure it feels like ARAM.
Okay.
So it turns out making a very, very different map shape, even though we were obviously just testing it, it broke that rule. But it was kind of funny to experience.
Also, as one of the leads on game modes, you can maybe make a snake mode at any point.
Just the normal snake, just the normal.
Just don't call it ARAM, and I think you're good to go.
Distinct snake.
Okay, thank you so much for the insights on this one. As an absolute hardcore arena player, I need to ask you, we have 12 months, which is a normal timeline in January. Kind of weird in July, no? How did you decide, okay, we do it for 1 year now? Was this just to give you some planning ideas and to have some milestones that you can actually follow?
Yeah, so obviously Arena performed very well in this last release, and we're really excited about it. Part of it, though, is we want to put it out there and tell players, hey, we're also invested in this. We believe in this as much as you do, right? I think one of the critiques we've gotten in the past is we're not willing to meet players where they are on some of these experiences, or keep them updated. So we want to be pretty intentional and say, we believe this is worth your investment because we're also making this investment. We believe that if, Riot showed that, Arena made sense and that it was we're willing to invest in and put our time into it, that players will too. So very excited to hopefully deliver on that promise moving forward. Obviously, we're going to be pretty targeted with some of the changes for at least the next 12 months, where obviously we have other stuff on the roadmap that we need to work towards and keep in mind. So maybe we won't be like swinging for the fences to start, but we're definitely excited to make sure that arena players feel represented. This is like the same way we felt about ARAM and why we're doing these map changes. We kind of want arena players to feel the same way, that they're getting, what they're getting their due. They're getting what they've invested out of the mode, that they have something to look forward to, that anytime in one of our dev updates, there's a mode section, they're like, oh, is it going to be arena? Or even if it's not an arena update, hey, Swarm or whatever crazy idea we have cooked up, we just want to give expectations to players that League is a growing, evolving game, and there's just something always to look forward to.
Okay, now if you allow me this question, actually it's kind of difficult to explain, but since you made Arena playable for this time, then it was really well received. Then you decided like, okay, actually we have to put it in again. It's like so good. But I can imagine normally you're way ahead of your timetable. Like if we get a mod now, you worked on it for a month again. So is it reasonable to assume that Arena for the next season won't get a revamp like it got for Noxus, because I can imagine it's just so much workload and you actually just jump the shit now and have to deliver this. So is this something that we can, which is at least not that unreasonable to assume that we won't have a completely re-ramp there?
Yeah, I think that's a reasonable assumption to make. We obviously have a few cards up our sleeve for our next season that we'll reveal in due time. But definitely our eyes on the horizon for Arena. So expect to hear more about that in the not too near future, admittedly. But we will like make sure that there are some more targeted updates, so that if there's like unhealthy metas forming or things of that nature, that we'll have the time and energy to address it until our next bigger release that will be a little bit further out.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that. If I have one last suggestion, there's actually an Arena God title in League of Legends. And it's like so damn hard to get. Like it's unbelievable hard because you actually have to win on, at the start it was to win on every damn champion. Like whoever implemented that.
I got rectified. I agree.
And now I think it's only 122 or something, which is still really?
I think it's 60. We're at 60.
Really? Okay. Yeah. Thank God. At the moment, I'm like at tier level, and then you have to get higher. So I wasn't sure when the scale actually ends. In TFT, we say if you're top 4, you win. This is like a win. I would ask you to speak to these guys and maybe discuss if this isn't something you should think about.
Noted. Technically, behind the scenes, Arena is actually just like TFT. It is a victory. It will display as a victory if you come in top 4. For the purposes of this specific challenge, though, we do want that to be the chase target. So, like, I don't think we'll be adjusting that because it's meant to be very difficult. And for some of the more diehard, I'm going to spend an inordinate amount of time in Arena gamers. But yeah, actually, our new progression system considers wins as top 4, and you'll note that depending on your progression on certain champions. But there is still always a mission for top 1. So like,
it makes sense.
If you're not first, you're last at some point. You gotta accept that, right?
For sure. I mean, there has to be some grindy stuff, and I love it about the game mode as well, right? But what I would like to have, if I picked the champs that I can see with who I already won, that would be like, oh, I would love it. But actually, it's so niche. I see it because I'm only chasing the title. And you actually see it in some other points. So, I mean, Arena will be lovely. I will love it dearly. Thank you so much for taking the time. I'm really looking forward to the ARAM maps. I could already play them, and I love them. I think they're really beautiful. This is actually the first time that I put the graphic settings to very high. Because normally I'm like, I just need FPS. I don't care about the rest. But actually, this one is really lovely. You all did such an amazing job. Thank you for your involvement. I love the Arena to death. It actually brought me back to League. I played so much that I actually started playing solo queue after that. It's unbelievable. So thank you so much for that. And we are really hoping that you will continue bringing us all these nice games.
Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for the questions. This was great. And I really appreciate your messages, and we'll make sure the team hears them as well.
Thank you.